Well, it has been copy-pasted in my slide. Okay, colleagues, please tell me what you can see on the screen. Okay. And give me a sec. Good. It is our great pleasure to continue. We have already heard multiple times from our previous presenter, from Professor Smith, that the Olweus program has 40% success rate. Therefore, I believe, okay, my colleagues are relaunching my presentation. There was something wrong in it. And I very much hope that our presenters, Susan Limber, PhD professor from the Dan Olweus professor at Clemson University, Jan Urbanski, the director of Safe and Humane School with the Institute on Family and Neighborhood Life at Clemson University, Jane Riese, the assistant director of Safe and Humane Schools with the Institute on Family and Neighborhood Life of the College of Behavioral, Social, and Health Sciences at Clemson University. We hope that our presenters will definitely describe the secret of your success. And our agenda for this presentation is as follows. The key components of the program called Olweus and main focus, ways to reduce and prevent bullying problems among school children and improve peer relations at school, how to improve peer relations, evidences of the program efficiency, and I believe we will have multiple questions at the end. Distinguished colleagues, I am passing you the floor. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
We will finally hear it because we have been waiting for your presentation for 4 days and we are ready to consume.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm Jan Urbanski, the Director of Safe and Humane Schools at Clemson University. And I'm going to wait just a moment for my colleague to put up our presentation for you, and then we'll get started. We welcome you to this session about the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program. So hopefully we meet your expectations after days and days of waiting. The Olweus program is the very first and one of the most researched initiatives of its type in the world. It's a whole education approach. It's designed to reduce and prevent bullying in elementary, middle, and high schools. And it's been proven effective in reducing bullying among students, in improving social climate of classrooms, and in reducing related antisocial behaviors. It was originally developed in the 1980s, and the core components of the Olweus program have not changed since then, but the program really has evolved to remain relevant in schools today. So today, our learning objectives, what we're going to do during this session, we're going to share information about the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program. We'll discuss training, we'll discuss dissemination, and then we'll talk about program implementation. And we're also going to present the core components of the program, which have been identified by researchers and practitioners as best practices in bullying prevention and intervention. But first, we wanted to start with just a little bit of background. Dr. Olweus's work and the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program stem from these 4 guiding principles you see that are derived from research on reducing aggressive behavior. Adult behavior is key, and it should display genuine warmth and interest in students, while also setting consistent limits for undesirable behavior. Consequences must be known by everyone in the school community, adults and youth alike, with the adults modeling the behaviors that they expect from students. Dr. Olweus has been widely recognized as a pioneer and a founding father of research on bullying problems. He's been known as the leading expert, both within the research community and by society at large. So here you see his widely read book, Bullying at School, What We Know and What We Can Do. Often this book is referred to as the definitive book on bullying problems. It's a milestone in that it offers a scientifically evaluated intervention program. The book has been translated into 25 different languages. Dan Olweus was Swedish and a professor of psychology, but he did much of his work in Norway and was recognized numerous times throughout his career for his trailblazing work. So in 1970, Dr. Olweus started a large-scale project that is now regarded as the world's first scientific study of bullying. In the 1980s, Dr. Olweus conducted a systematic intervention study against bullying, the first in the world, and it documented several positive effects. We now refer to this intervention as the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program, or also called the OBPP. He was the first to study the problem of bullying of students by teachers as well, and he then led a national large-scale implementation of his model in Norwegian schools. In the 1990s, Dr. Susan Limber began collaborating with Dan Olweus, and this led to the first implementation and evaluation of the Olweus program in the United States. Again, finding reductions in bullying and other antisocial behaviors. By 1999, the Olweus program was named a blueprint program in the United States, which means it was one of 10 programs meeting a high scientific standard of effectiveness. So we're going to share more about the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program research shortly, but first I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Jane to share more about what the program is.
Thank you so much, Jan. Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. The Olweus Bullying Prevention Program is a school-wide comprehensive framework focused on systemic change to create a safe and positive school climate. The Olweus program is designed for students in elementary, middle, and high schools and involves everyone, all staff, parents, students, and the community in bullying prevention efforts. All students participate in most aspects of the program, while students who bully others and those who are bullied receive additional individual interventions. The program focuses on changing social norms so that bullying is not accepted and that no children are marginalized or excluded. And its purpose is to prevent bullying, but also to guide adults to intervene in known or potential bullying cases. So to summarize, the Olweus program focuses on the school as a system and aspects of that system that support or discourage bullying behavior, and also on individual student behavior. The program focuses on prevention, but also how to intervene when bullying problems arise. Program focuses on changing climate and social norms, as mentioned. And importantly, the program has no end date. Bullying as a problem requires continuous attention, and efforts should be woven into the fabric of school life. Now, it's also important to understand what the program is not. It's not a curriculum, although there are many user-friendly curriculum classroom support materials. A curriculum is more time limited, it may be grade-based, and it's focused on a specific area of learning, but the Olweus program is a broader effort focused on everyone in the school. It's not a short-term solution and should not be viewed, for example, as a one-year project. Systems change takes time and commitment and an ongoing effort. Program is also not a conflict resolution or peer mediation program. Bullying is a form of victimization, not conflict. And Olweus often does not encourage mediation between students who bully and those who are bullied because of the power imbalance between the parties involved and the potential for re-victimization there. Program is also not a suicide prevention program. Bullying victimization certainly can be related to depression and suicidal ideation, but suicide, as many of you know, is a very complicated issue, and there are so many factors that can put students at risk for suicide. The goals of the Olweus program are to reduce existing bullying problems among students and prevent new bullying problems, and also to achieve better relationships among peers. And these goals are pursued by restructuring the school environment to reduce opportunities and rewards for bullying, to encourage pro-social behaviors among the students, and to build a sense of community. I'm going to turn it to my colleague, Sue.
Thank you so much, Jane. I'm Sue Limber, Dan Olweus professor here at Clemson University. It's such a pleasure to be with you all. So as both Jan and Jane have described, this comprehensive program focuses on the entire school environment. It's a coordinated collection of research-based components that include school-wide. Jane, I think if you could click the, there may be an active link there. Yes, school-wide interventions, as we're going to talk about in more detail, classroom level interventions, individual one-on-one interventions, and community strategies as well, with families, as you see in the middle of this puzzle, involved at each level. So let's look at the components of the program in a little bit more detail. We're not going to describe all of the components, but enough, I think, to try to give you a sense for the program elements at each of these levels. So let's begin on the left with school-wide components. At the school level, each school building establishes a leadership team or a coordinating team. This is the engine that keeps the efforts on track and helps to ensure that all program components are in place and are maintained. Fidelity, in other words. Training is provided for all members of this committee, but also all the members of the school staff. Students are surveyed once a year, we recommend, through the use of the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program questionnaire in order to get a good idea about the prevalence of bullying at this school building, the locations where it happens, as well as students' attitudes and behaviors when they observe bullying. In addition, at the school-wide level, clear rules and policies about bullying are developed and adopted and communicated. So those are just some of the key school-wide components. What about the classroom level? Within classrooms, students learn these anti-bullying rules, and they're applied consistently in the classroom level. Importantly, class meetings are held regularly with students where books are put away, and there's a time to focus on bullying prevention, but also peer relations and other social emotional topics that are important to this positive school climate. Often student advisory groups are formed to bring the voices of youth into the planning process, both at the classroom level and the school level. Students always have really important ideas that we need to hear from. What about individual level components? At the individual level, all staff are encouraged and trained to intervene when bullying is witnessed by them or suspected or reported to them. Staff also follow up then with the young people separately, those who bully, those who are bullied, and also obviously communicate with parents. So the interventions are designed to stop the bullying, to provide support to those students who've been bullied, and really educate all students about the expectations about behaviors. At the community level, schools might include a community member on their leadership team at the school to build some bridges between community groups and the school program, but also to spread the message about bullying prevention to community settings where students, where children gather. So let's take a little bit closer look at these components in relation to best practices in bullying prevention. A number of best practices in bullying prevention and intervention have been identified by ourselves, by the bullying prevention community. These are bullying prevention best practices across bullying prevention programs, as I think Peter alluded to. What do we know works across efforts? So we'd like to discuss each of these briefly in the context specifically about how the Olweus program encompasses these best practices. So we're going to walk through each of these. The first element of best practice is to focus on the whole school environment. To change the norms in one school about bullying, everybody has to be involved. Students, teachers, custodians, bus drivers, if you have them, athletic coaches, just to name a few. To change this system, we need everybody. It's got to be the norm, the expectation for all staff and all students to notice and to respond when a child is being bullied or being left out. A second element of best practices is to assess bullying. We recommend doing this by surveying students anonymously to learn, again, as I mentioned earlier, how often are they bullied? When are they bullied? Where are they bullied? And who is doing the bullying? We've learned that adults are not very accurate at estimating the prevalence of bullying at their school and are frequently surprised at the amount of bullying that students experience, maybe the types of bullying that students are engaged in, or the locations where bullying is most common at their school. So the best way to find out answers to those questions is to ask the students themselves. Pictured here is the Olweus bullying questionnaire. As I mentioned earlier, it's an anonymous questionnaire administered to students annually to assess all these things: how much, the types of bullying, the location of bullying problems at the school. It's a tool not only to measure change over time to see if your efforts are progressing in the right direction, but it's also a great tool to plan your specific interventions. I'm going to turn it over to Jan now to continue talking about best practices.
Thank you. The next best practice is to form a group to coordinate your bullying prevention efforts. The Olweus program calls this the Bullying Prevention Coordinating Committee. Program implementation begins with this team participating in a comprehensive 12-hour training. The committee then tailors the program to fit the school's specific cultural and structural needs. The committee continues to meet at least monthly to plan bullying prevention activities. They train and motivate the rest of the staff, the students, and parents and families. And they ensure that efforts continue over time. They are the engine that really keeps the program running. Effective team members generally have a passion for the work, and they know how to motivate other adults. A student advisory group can also be formed to give valuable suggestions and feedback to the adults. It's important that all staff receive training as well, not just the committee. All staff must know how to identify bullying. They need to understand how it harms students and to know just what to do if they see it or hear it, or if they learn about it. And essentially, they need to have opportunities to practice or role play intervening in a bullying situation. So that's a part of the training. With the Olweus program, staff participate in 6 hours of training. After that, ongoing professional development is provided through smaller monthly staff discussion groups. And as mentioned, training is for all personnel at the school. bus drivers, if you have them, custodial staff, cafeteria staff, people working in the front office, people on the playground. All staff receive training to give them the opportunity to practice their skills so they feel comfortable addressing bullying problems with students. So they have the actual words to say when they see bullying, and so that all adults in the school are willing to act on the spot, feeling confident that they have the authority and they have the know-how to address the bullying issue. As mentioned before, success really is everyone working together. So the Olweus training model is outlined in the circles you see here. Olweus program leadership, based at Clemson University, trains Olweus bullying prevention program trainers or Olweus coaches. Then the trainer or the coach trains that bullying prevention coordinating committee at each school. In turn, the bullying prevention coordinating committee, with the assistance of the trainer or coach, then train the rest of the school faculty and staff. The training can be done in person, it can be done virtually, or it can be done in a blended learning format. James?
So our fifth best practice, thank you, Jan, is to have rules and policies firmly in place at the school. And of course, the message must be clear to students. We will not bully others in this school. We will help students who are bullied. We will include students who are left out, and we will report bullying to adults if we know about it. So adults are responsible for teaching these rules, posting the rules, and then acknowledging and thanking students for following the rules. And when students don't follow the rules, and they don't always do that, adults will provide fair and reasonable and supportive consequences to students who bully, so they learn to make better decisions. And the sixth of these strategies is actually to involve the children themselves. One important way to do that, as was mentioned earlier, is for teachers to hold circle discussions with students in the classroom every week. And these discussions are varied. They're about peer relationships, including friendship, bullying, cyberbullying, and other social and emotional issues. This is really time well spent, as it deepens relationships between adults and students and helps to develop mutually respectful relationships among the peers themselves. These meetings also provide specific tools for young people to use when dealing with bullying and other social problems. And another way to involve students that was mentioned too is this use of student advisory groups, because young people are so enthusiastic, and that enthusiasm is essential to the success of your efforts. Student voice provides valuable feedback to adults as well. A seventh practice is to increase adult supervision where bullying happens. And once we survey students, the results show where the bullying is taking place. The school committee organizes ways to increase adult attention in these areas without necessarily having to hire additional staff. Our eighth best practice is to intervene consistently and appropriately when bullying happens. Adults have to be well prepared, all of them, to step in when bullying is seen or reported. As mentioned before, the adults need training and opportunities to practice that, so they are ready to step in. We call this the on-the-spot intervention, and it's something that all adults do if they witness bullying firsthand. Adults also practice how to talk with students one-on-one afterwards. We call this a follow-up intervention, which provides an opportunity for students and staff and parents to have deeper conversations about the bullying incident to develop solutions for everybody's safety and positive growth. These interventions teach young people what we expect of their behavior, especially if adults intervene with consistency across the entire school. And the message has got to be clear, and the message has to come from everybody. All staff should intervene effectively on the spot when they observe bullying, and then certain staff should be able to hold sensitive follow-up meetings with kids who are bullied and who bully others separately, not bringing the students together, but having these follow-ups separately, and then know when and how to involve families and parents. So our ninth strategy is that kind of obtaining parental support. We've got to involve families right from the start. Parents need to understand that the school is actively working to stop bullying. And keeping those lines of communication open can really build positive connections between home and school. And parents truly have to feel genuinely welcome to contact the school if they have concerns of any kind. So we encourage involving families at all levels of implementation, the school-wide level, the classroom level, individual and community level as well. So since the Olweus program involves the entire school community, parents and families are viewed as partners, and they need to know why the school is concerned about bullying and what they should do if their child is being bullied, if their child may be bullying others, and if their child witnesses bullying, as was mentioned by Dr. Smith earlier, and how to report problems if they occur, and how they themselves can partner with the school in these efforts of prevention. The next strategy is to be sure there's plenty of support for bullying prevention, because preventing bullying is really hard work and it requires a highly supported process. For example, our Olweus coaches support the school with monthly consultation for at least 12 months after the committee is trained. And in turn, this coach has a mentor from our program at Clemson University for up to 12 months as well. Also, schools and coaches have what they need in the way of resources. They've got implementation guides. They've got complete training materials, clear consultation topic ideas to help make the implementation process very clear. And they're provided with what they need to do this work well. And I'll turn it back to you, Jan.
Thanks, Jane. So to provide this ongoing support that Jane mentioned, the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program offers planning, training, and implementation resources for schools. The school-wide guide that you see here, the green book, provides step-by-step directions for school-wide implementation. And this is designed for school leaders and members of the Bullying Prevention Coordinating Committee. The red book in the middle is the teacher guide, and it's the implementation resource for teachers and other classroom support staff. It highlights the importance of addressing bullying within the classroom setting to support successful school-wide implementation. The Olweus Bullying Questionnaire that Sue mentioned earlier is an important planning tool before and after program implementation. It's administered to all students in grades 3 through 12 before the program begins to establish a baseline, and then it's administered annually thereafter. The school's results are compared to a national database here in the US, and they receive a detailed report that interprets the results. These results are then used by the Bullying Prevention Coordinating Committee for program planning and for measuring program success. So these are the core program materials that are available either in print or through an electronic subscription. There are also supplementary materials that support class meetings. Engaging students in social, emotional, as well as cognitive learning in the classroom is vital. So we have these easy to use and developmentally appropriate class meetings that matter. And they provide ideas and topics to discuss bullying related things, as well as peer relations, respecting differences, building a positive classroom climate, and other social emotional learning topics. The class meetings that matter come in elementary, middle, and high school versions, and each has detailed meeting activities that have a theme and information about ways to link bullying prevention class meetings to other curriculums. On the bottom row, you see more class meetings that matter. And this is a follow-up to the first volume of Class Meetings That Matter, helping schools to extend their class meeting efforts. This more volume has a special focus on the issue of bullying and children with disabilities, helping all students to become aware of what disabilities are, both those that are visible and those that aren't visible. It helps them to gain greater acceptance of all students and hopefully to reduce the high rates of bullying behavior that are experienced by these students. Altogether, there are more than 200 lessons available in these resources. And that takes us to the last best practice, and that is to stay the course. Don't give up. Bullying is a social problem. It demands ongoing attention. Jane mentioned it's not a one-year thing, it's ongoing. School climates can change, but it requires a commitment to shift ingrained attitudes and norms. So this doesn't happen overnight. There shouldn't be an end date for bullying prevention. Instead, schools must develop good habits and weave these principles and practices into daily school life. They should also make time every year to reinforce this work with some refresher training, new class meeting topics, ongoing student and family involvement, and of course, training for new staff. And of course, success depends on the commitment and support of the leaders in the school so that these strategies are implemented with fidelity. We do acknowledge that students come to school with a wide variety of needs. So schools really do need more than one program to meet all the needs of students. So to help and support and sustain efforts, we've developed several resources that crosswalk the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program with topics such as social emotional learning, restorative practices, and positive behavior supports. PBIS. These are initiatives that are commonly used in the US. Olweus Bullying Prevention Training and resources address each of these initiatives and how they're related to bullying prevention. For example, trainers and coaches are exposed to the connection between suicide and bullying, and they hear that a clear suicide prevention process is needed in addition to the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program. So not just one program to address all needs of students. Encouraging schools to see how the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program can be aligned with other initiatives helps them to combine efforts efficiently, which helps them to sustain those efforts over time.
So bullying doesn't only occur in schools, as you all know. We know that young people gather in various locations. They have multiple sets of needs. And Olweus is a framework so that the core components and supportive materials can be used in any setting where children and youth are on a regular basis. So a version of the Olweus program for community youth organizations is being used by many before and after school programs, as well as in specific organizations that serve youth. The 10 strategies based on what we've shared here can be used in non-school settings to support bullying prevention there. The Olweus program in the United States is currently working with state departments of health and mental health and numerous varied youth-serving organizations in the U.S. to implement the Olweus program using a more community-focused model. Extensive research on Olweus and bullying prevention programs more generally highlight the effectiveness of these programs, and this was discussed by Peter Smith earlier. For example, the 2016 National Academies report called Preventing Bullying Through Science, Policy, and Practice noted that whole school comprehensive programs are the most effective strategies to address bullying, and that the Olweus program was the most extensively studied program of this type. I'm going to turn it back to Sue to talk more about research for the program.
Great. Thanks, Jan. Thanks, Jane and Jan. In addition, several published meta-analyses, you see a few pictured here. Meta-analyses are analyses of multiple evaluations, in this case of bullying prevention programs. So several of these have really confirmed, as Peter Smith alluded to, that school-based programs can prevent bullying. And these meta-analyses have also highlighted the Olweus program, and noting in one that those programs that have been inspired by Dan Olweus seem to work best. My colleagues and I have been involved in a number of large-scale evaluations of the Olweus bullying prevention program in the US, which builds upon decades of research and evaluation on the program in Norway. So I wanted to give you just a highlight of some of our findings here in the United States. In the first published study, we presented findings from students in grades 3 through 11 in a large number of schools in the in the northeastern United States. What did we find? Well, we followed some groups of students for 2 years. We followed others for 3 years. And what we found was really remarkable and consistent with the findings in Norway. We found reductions in children's self-reports of being bullied and bullying others in nearly all grades for both boys and for girls. From these reductions, we in fact estimated that in these schools, about 2,000 students had escaped being bullied, and about a similar number of students had been prevented from bullying others. We also, importantly, in addition to seeing decreases in behaviors, we saw decreases and increases in relevant helping behaviors and attitudes about bullying. For example, we saw increases in students' empathy with peers who were bullied, which we want to see if we're changing the climate and the norms of the school. We saw decreases in students saying that they would be willing to join in bullying if they saw it around them. We also saw evidence that the program was really taking hold with teachers. Students reported increases in their beliefs and their perceptions that their teachers had addressed bullying and took this issue seriously. As Peter Smith alluded to, importantly, we saw stronger effects the longer the program was in place. A follow-up study using data from some of these same schools over 3 years found that the Olweus program was successful in reducing all forms of being bullied and all forms of bullying others, including verbal bullying, physical bullying, indirect forms of bullying, bullying through sexual words and gestures, and with somewhat weaker effects, also cyberbullying. Again, for most analyses, the program effects were stronger the longer that the program was in effect. So not just bullying overall reductions, but specific forms of bullying being reduced. One of Dr. Olweus's last studies was published in the Scandinavian Journal of Psychology back in 2000. And importantly, this research showed the longer term effectiveness of the Olweus bullying prevention program. The study found that students in 70 different elementary schools that had continued the Olweus program had experienced significantly less bullying 2 to 8 years after launching the program. It's a long-term follow-up compared with students in 102 schools that had not continued to implement the program. So if you look at this graph, I apologize. I think some of the key was cut off here, but the percentages of bullied students was much lower in schools that continued to implement the Olweus program. That's the red line that you see there. as compared with the national average in Norway, which is the green line, or with schools that had begun the Olweus program, but didn't continue to implement that. And that is the blue line. So again, the red line is those schools who continued to implement versus national average in green, and those schools who discontinued use in blue. In fact, the likelihood of being bullied in a non-Olweus school was nearly 40% higher than for students in schools that continued to implement the program. So that suggests that schools that continued to implement the program had really changed the climate or the culture of the school with regard to addressing bullying that occurs and, importantly, preventing bullying in the first place. So in summary, an abundance of research has confirmed that the Olweus program is effective because of the positive research results. In a variety of countries, the Olweus program has received a lot of attention, including in the United States, some of the recognitions that you see here. It's a promising program by Blueprints for Healthy Youth Development at the University of Colorado Boulder. Our National Dropout Prevention Center gives the Olweus program their highest level rating. And as noted earlier, it's been highlighted by the U.S. National Academies in a variety of meta-analyses, as I had mentioned earlier. Back to Jane.
Thanks, Sue. The Olweus Bullying Prevention Program has been implemented in more than 7,000 schools in all 50 states in the United States and in various places around the world. Since the initial implementation in the U.S., we have conducted 111 trainer certification courses with more than 2,000 people participating, and 5 coach trainings with over 100 participants so far. Although there are so many different competing demands that schools face these days, we see that schools are really seeking evidence-based bullying prevention programs and hear from them regularly. It's more important than ever to remain relevant and help schools see the connection between bullying prevention and overall school safety initiatives. So this kind of concludes our formal presentation. We are so appreciative that you took the time to join us today about the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program, and we would be more than happy to answer your questions. Of course, we welcome questions on over email as well, so please feel free to reach out to us if you would like.
Jane, Sue, Jen, thank you so much. This has been a very interesting presentation of the program. And during our webinar series, we've heard of it many times. You've presented it in a very systematic way, and I dare to ask the first question as a moderator. Do you organize trainings only for American teachers, or do you consider international trainings for teachers from other countries?
Well, I'll just venture to say that we are a network that largely has provided training for those in North America. However, as we continue to collaborate with the Olweus family, since unfortunately we lost Dan a couple of years ago at the age of 89, to determine next steps for continued provision of services globally. So stay tuned on future directions for the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program and a training model as those conversations continue regularly.
Yes, and if I could just add to that, that our coach training that the model we're currently using is a virtual training. So we do have people from other countries that do join that training. It's obviously in English, and materials are in English. But if you're interested in learning more or participating, it is open and virtual, so others would be able to attend.
Thank you. We have questions from our participants, and I'm proceeding with them. The first question is, could you dwell on the questionnaire? What are the questions in the questionnaire? What are the questions in the list?
I'd be happy to answer that, but my colleagues, please jump in. So asking about the nature of the questions on the questionnaire. It's an extensive 32, I believe, item questionnaire. Again, it's for students who are proficient in reading, so 3rd grade and higher. And to give you a sense of the questions, students are asked to reflect on the last couple of months of their experience in school, and asked to describe the frequency with which they have been bullied overall and in different specific ways, different types of bullying. They're asked this after, importantly, giving them a definition to make sure that they understand what we're talking about in terms of bullying. They're asked about, similarly, how often in this period of time have they bullied others? They are asked if they have been bullied, where has it happened at the school? If they're bullied, they are asked, have they told anybody? So important. And if they have told somebody, who have they told at the school? All students are asked about their experience in witnessing bullying. As I alluded to earlier, do they think they could join in bullying? How do they feel about students that they see bullied? What do they do when they see students bullied? So it tries to capture pretty global assessment of frequency, attitudes, locations, and also behaviors after the bullying exists in terms of reporting. And I'm sure I've missed some of the key components of the questionnaire, but our goal is to give schools a pretty comprehensive view of what bullying in their school looks like. We can talk all day about national trends, but we know that there are important differences within different school communities. So we feel it's very important to go to the source within your particular school. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you. The only question is, to what extent, as you believe, children can be objective when answering these questions? We do understand the answers are subjective, but whether they're telling the truth, aren't they afraid to give answers?
That's a great question, which is, how do you measure bullying? How do we best do it? There are different strategies. This is obviously an anonymous questionnaire. Other strategies involved observations of children in a school setting. Other strategies may involve asking students to report, who in their classroom are being bullied, more social network approaches. There's no perfect way to assess students' perceptions, but I think our research and others suggest that an anonymous questionnaire is a pretty valid and reliable measure of bullying. Not perfect, but a pretty good assessment. Because it's anonymous, I think most students feel that they can be truthful. Of course, some students may have a hard time being truthful to themselves, particularly if they bully others. So there may be some instances of underreporting bullying behavior, other instances of overreporting. So it's not a perfect measure, but most research suggests it's, I think, the best tool that we have. I mentioned earlier that bullying is defined for children, and I think that's very important in a questionnaire. We can't assume that what we understand as bullying, the components that Peter Smith has talked about, and I'm sure you've talked about with others in this session, we can't assume that children will have the same understanding. So it's defined for them in some very clear language. And I think that's important as well.
Indeed. Everything progresses. When visiting schools in Spain, we could see implementation of the program where AI is doing the polling. There are robots at school and they diagnose aggressiveness of children, and it was really impressive. Spanish practices, I believe, are quite interesting. They also have special games for classes. When they do not ask direct questions, they do this in a virtual game. A kid prioritizes in a class, and then this is accumulated. So there are different options. But I think that maybe your program will also have some digitalization, because digitalization is going on. Sometimes it's easier for kids to talk to a robot rather than to fill the paper and give it to a teacher. Well, this is just as an example. Thank you very much. There's another interesting question. There are guards, there are cafeteria workers and other workers and employees at school. What should we do to train them, and how, like, what they should learn to prevent bullying? We do not speak about teaching staff, we speak about auxiliary staff. So what they learn.
I will start to address that, and Jane, please jump in, and Sue. Essentially, they're getting the very same training that the rest of the school staff is getting. The program has everybody receiving training on what bullying is, how to recognize it. They're also receiving training on how to address it. Jane mentioned the on-the-spot intervention. So if you see or hear bullying happening, we want all adults to have that skill to step in to stop the behavior. There's follow-up that may or may not happen from the staff, but they're still aware of what the reporting requirements are. So they're hearing the same message that the faculty at the school, the teachers are hearing, because we want everybody to feel empowered to address the bullying behaviors.
Yes, and I would just simply add that this person who undergoes training through Clemson University provides a 12-hour training to leadership team at the school. And then the leadership team at the school, with the support of the person trained by Clemson, would then deliver a 6-hour training to the rest of the staff. And we would hope that the support staff that you mentioned is involved in receiving that training as well, along with opportunities for refresher training, to be reminded, to be supported on how to step in that intervention if they see bullying happen.
Thank you. Is there the training of parents organized, or what work should be done with the parents in the family where they have bullying, irrespective of whether this is a bully or the child who was attacked by a buller? So what the family should do?
Well, I could get us started and invite Jan and Sue to join in. I think it's first important to be very clear as a community what the mission and commitment of the school is for preventing bullying in the first place, so that the entire school community, all the families, understand we take this problem seriously. Here is why. Here is how we plan to move forward with this. You may be hearing from us if your child may be involved in what we have, what we're concerned at may be a bullying situation. So please count on hearing from us if we think your child's involved. Also, please contact us if you hear from your child that they themselves may be involved in any kind of difficult situation. So we set a stage by letting everybody in the community know that we care about this mission and we are going to address it. We invite parents to be involved in the way of educational sessions that may take place in what we in the US may call a back to school night at the beginning of the year, for an example. And then, of course, when there are situations that are bullying or may be bullying, someone at the school is trained to reach out to those families and invite them to share their concerns. We invite the parents to partner with us. So, they know their children better than anyone else, and we invite them to come with suggestions on the best way to address the problem, regardless on which side of the situation it's on. And of course, please join in my colleagues.
I would just add a couple of thoughts to that. We do, and we may have mentioned this earlier, or I may have forgotten to note that we encourage at least one parent to be a member of the school's planning team so that they really advise the team about parents' concerns and help the school communicate with parents. We also encourage classroom level meetings of parents where that's possible, so that, as a way of building a positive, supportive classroom climate with the extended family members. So a teacher could invite, in addition to the entire school inviting parents to come, a teacher could invite parents to come talk about the work they're doing and the importance of that, and provide some additional resources to parents. We don't typically talk about it as training of parents, but we do encourage lots of input, answering questions, and resources for parents, and to point them to other resources when families are struggling.
Indeed, in the follow-up of the question, quite often parents accuse teachers and school administration for letting bullying happen. What you do in case of such accusations? What the algorithm, step-by-step algorithm of dealing with such parents?
I can just say that in all of my years of doing this work, I find this to be so incredibly complicated. First of all, it is possible that we as adults may be humbled by what we learn about bullying behavior. We may ourselves learn that it's better if we don't use sarcasm. It's better if we don't use punitive tone of voice when we speak with children. It's better if we don't, if we intentionally avoid what could seem humiliating to children. So I think it's important in doing bullying prevention that we as a school really begin to examine the ways in which we interact with children and strive very hard to be calm and kind and respectful, even when students are not using behaviors that we desire. So that's one thing. Of course, it's so important that we recognize too, everything isn't bullying. I think when you get involved in bullying prevention programming, suddenly everything is bullying. And so we become hypersensitive to the issue as well. But over time, I think we have to consider that we want to be great listeners when parents have concerns. We want to take their concerns seriously if they feel their child is being mistreated in school by children or by adults. So this is, I wish there were easy answers to this one. It's very complicated.
Yeah, and I would just add that with the Olweus program, we're involving parents from the very beginning, and that is to build that relationship. So if they are concerned, they can come into the school and talk about their concerns, because it's very realistic that a school, if no one's told them, or a teacher, they may not have seen what was happening and may not be aware. So it really is everyone working together. So when a parent comes in, as Jane mentioned, taking that concern seriously and investigating what's happening, but prior to that happening, you've set up a relationship with the parents and families. So that just makes it easier when a problem does arise.
And I would just add, it's also so important for schools to document what they're doing to address the bullying, to be able to answer parents' concerns that they've done nothing when often they have done a lot. So documenting conversations, you may not be able to share specific information about students, but to reassure the parents where possible or where appropriate that steps are being taken.
Thank you very much. About documenting, about record keeping, this is very important. Certainly, we teachers have tons of papers, and our teachers might say, well, you want us to document something else, but sometimes it is important, and sometimes you can make some videos, or you can consider this as a leverage to protect yourself. I cannot but quote one statement by one of our participants. We have a local tradition. With every presenter, we try to discuss what can be the benefit in the bullying situation for the stakeholders. So there's the following statement: bullying is a mutual process in the context of which there's a mutual shaping of an individual, of the bully and victim. The victim should establish assertive personal qualities to resist in drama situations, and the bully should develop normative behavior. So both stakeholders should develop social resistance modalities and patterns for the future life. Can you comment this? And thank you very much for giving your answer.
I will give it a try to start. It is a great question. And yes, we want our children to learn social skills. This is why we have class meetings. This is why we encourage the enhancement of peer relationships. You know, it's a protective factor to have people to be with. We want our kids to know how to be in community, to stand up for themselves, to be assertive. We also know that bullying can be a source of trauma for young people. We know that students come to school with this whole array of social experiences in their circles. There are many, many circles in their communities. And so we cannot expect all students to react the same way. We cannot expect bullying to impact every student in the same way as well. So these two are important considerations. Certainly we do the child who bullies no favors if we don't step in and teach the impact of their behavior and how they can make better decisions. So there are so many aspects to this. It's never simple, though, because we all bring something different to the environment, and young people are the same way. They're also very different with wide range of backgrounds and experiences. So we want to respect the individuals along the way. But colleagues, join in, please.
I'm hearing Dan Olweus in my ear as he would often answer this really important question, to say, yes, as Jane has alluded to, we are so clearly stated that we do no favors to children who bully, to not teach them different behaviors. We don't do children who are victimized any favors by not trying to teach them skills that will prevent that in the future. At the same time, as Jane is saying, nobody deserves to be bullied, and we need to be careful never to send the message to children who are bullied that there's something wrong with them, that they need to change their personality. If they're a shy, reserved child, and if that's one of the reasons they may be a target of bullying. So it is a difficult balance to respect personalities, excuse me, and differences, but also teach skills to help protect them in the future.
And at the same time, well, there's a very vague borderline in our actions and words. Certainly, no parent would like his or her child to be subjected to bullying, because as our participants text, people who suffer from bullying, they are vulnerable for the whole life because they have those scars in their mind. And at the same time, the bully who perpetrates bullying is also somebody's son or daughter, and this child is also loved, and we accept this child. This is the philosophy of humane pedagogy. So, well, I don't know what Renat is going to say about your comment to his question, but maybe in order for the participants to shape social skills, I don't think we should exercise such harsh ways as going through bullying, and we have to make it softer. And it's good because all of us are looking for the truth. And there's another question. This is about a family. These are also borderline questions. A family knows that their child is a bully, but the family does not react, does not respond. They do not work with their child. They do not cooperate. Do you have any regulatory documents, maybe some acts or laws to prevent such bullying activities of this child? Is it possible to punish the family for the behavior of their child? What happens? Or maybe you just talk to them and you just try to convince them.
Just to kind of start to answer that, there's a lot of various risk factors that would contribute to a student or a child being bullying others. So family is just one of those. We're also looking at their peers, who they're hanging around with. We're also looking at what happens at the school. So even if the family is not responding, if the school is responding and there aren't opportunities for bullying to take place, then there will be less bullying. So just because a parent isn't responding or helping their child to address the issues, schools can do a lot to help with that by just having policies and procedures in place so that bullying doesn't happen, or if it does, then it gets reported and addressed effectively.
Yeah, yes, to add a little bit too, school has not always been a very positive place for many parents themselves growing up. And so they may have a lack of trust for the school environment. They may feel that schools are not understanding or supportive. Families also are experiencing so many pressures, whether it's poverty or perhaps mental health issues, maybe addiction, et cetera, other pressures in their societies and in their communities. And so I think it's important that we find the best ways we can to be empathetic and understanding and welcoming to all parents, to try to understand their experiences as well. And yes, of course, people who work in schools can find that it's difficult to find the time to deal with many different parents with many different concerns. So these are challenges faced by schools here in the United States as well.
Just to add to those good thoughts, how school personnel approach families is so important. We discourage the label of bully, for example. Nobody wants to hear that your child is a bully. We encourage talking about behavior and documenting specific behaviors as so much more effective than accusations or labels that will stick with the child, and that no parent is going to be welcoming to hear. Another strategy that can be really effective is to really to show your concern about the behavior for the child who's bullied, but also for their child as well. We have concerns that if your child continues this behavior, that's going to be bad for them in a variety of different ways. So I think showing that concern, avoiding labeling can help with those conversations. Will every parent be, ready to partner with the school to address their child's behavior? No, but I think sometimes the way we approach parents can make a big difference.
Thank you very much. And I suggest to finish this at a positive note. I would like to appreciate your introducing us to the program, and I believe that our participants will definitely visit your website. You will read your guidelines. They will consider how to study, and some of them will join the coach program that you have, and our participants are texting. Thank you so much. And indeed, when you have such a large international community, and when we understand that all countries face similar problems, and we, those who work in pedagogy, deal with the same challenges, and when we know that some people have identified efficient tools and others are looking for them, it's good for us to share our practices. We really appreciate our attendees who are very interactive. They are very interested in the topic. Well, there are many more important topics maybe in the world that we can see a huge number of our attendees. This is a proof that the comfort of our children is what concerns us, because our future comfort will depend on this. Jen, Sue, thank you very much for joining us today. All the best to your program. Please develop your international community and make courses not only for the US teachers, because your experience is very long, it's very valuable, and it's much easier to launch, to start. If you start from a platform, if you have some background, and then make your own discoveries. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Would you
you
like
for
to say
having us.
anything? Yeah.
Just to say thank you for having us, and you're exactly right. We are all in this together. So the community that you mentioned and the creation of humane settings is what links us. So best wishes to all of you.
Yes, it's an honor to be here. Thank you, all of you, and continue with your wonderful work.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, I would like to make an announcement of tomorrow. We are going to work very intensively. I could see in the chat that some people get tired, but colleagues, this will finish soon. You will get rid of us.